It's My Planet Rocks live with Vivian Campbell. Now, the Dio years, it's kind of like two sides of a coin. You started, you're just out of your teens, the Holy Diver era, you got the mid-80s, Last in Line album. How was it then? You're a young lad, it's Ronnie James Dio, formerly of Sabbath and Rainbow. Were you like a kid in a sweet shop at the time?
No, it was quite frightening actually, to go from playing in an obscure band in Belfast and to go to LA and be playing in a band with people whose records I'd been listening to for years. I mean, I had some early Rainbow records, and I wasn't a huge Sabbath fan actually until Mob Rules, till Ronnie joined. And strangely enough, that was a cassette that was in the car that I was listening to around the time that I got the call to go audition for Ronnie. And I was listening to Mob Rules, so quite a coincidence, but it was very intimidating being around them. I didn't feel worthy of being there. I mean, maybe that's just an Irish thing, it just felt wrong. And I was reasonably confident in my abilities until I went to LA, because I only knew like one other guy in Ireland who played guitar, Pat McManus.
Oh, Mama's Boys.
So it was me and Pat. Like everyone else could play a few chords. So I thought, I got this covered. Then I go to LA, and everyone's a guitar player, and everyone's like a monster shredder. Just great technique, and it was quite intimidating. So I just couldn't understand why Ronnie didn't just play with one of these guys,
Why did he choose you? Do you know?
Well, he wanted, he told me he wanted a European-style guitar player like Blackmore or Iommi. I understand now. I didn't understand it at the time. He was looking for someone who had something a bit different, cheap. Someone cheap, yeah. That too, yeah. Someone who would work for free. Yeah. But the thing was, and what I came to understand in later years about all these great technical players in LA is that they have learned how to play and they've got great technique, but their personality is stifled, perhaps, or takes a back row seat to the technique. Whereas I think a lot of guitar players from this side of the pond, especially in that era, we were all self-taught, so we had to kind of find our own way. And as a result of that, you develop a personality as a player. You develop a sound and a style by accident, not by design. And I think that's what Ronnie wanted, So, like, there were a couple of things that he pointed out to me in later years. Like, I put vibrato on chord. I think that's a result of playing a Les Paul, because they can be a little bit tuney. Like, you can have a chord in tune in the first open position, but by the time you're at the 5th or 7th fret, it can be a little fruity sounding. So because I didn't have a wang bar on the guitar, I kind of would shake the chords. I remember Ronnie pointing out to me, saying, I really love how you put that vibrato on chords. And up to that point, I hadn't even noticed that I did it. It was just subconscious. And another thing, he found a cassette tape that he had been recording the audition. He found the cassette tape, and we're both sitting there listening to it and listening to the guitar solo. And like every guitar player, you have your chops that you think are flashy and impressive, so you play those. And I'd kind of exhausted the repertoire, and I'd run out of ideas, and so I started just playing basic rock and roll, updated Chuck Berry kind of stuff. Yeah. And Ronnie pointed at the cassette player at that time, said, "That's it." He says, "That's when I knew you were the guitar player for me." So basically, when I ran out of ideas, and you kind of have to go on instinct. You're just kind of making you're making stuff up as you go. This is a radio, right? And so, I think that's what he liked, that it wasn't so typewriter, it wasn't so technical, I suppose, To answer your question, I've gone way roundabout here. To answer your question, no, it was very intimidating for me at that time. I didn't feel secure in my playing or my position in the band. I just didn't feel like I belonged there, it felt wrong to me. I was 20 years old, and these guys were, even Vinny, who's was only a few years older than me, but I'd listened to him with Sabbath, and I knew he played with Derringer and his brother's Carmine. It's like these guys were rock royalty to me, So it was a very, very strange position altogether.
You've been, over the years, we talked about it a few years ago, you've given interviews about when you left Dio. It wasn't the most pleasant experience of your life. It was bitter and acrimonious would be the right term.
You could say it was a bad divorce.
Is it right? It was like you were unhappy with him because you felt he'd gone back on his word and didn't honour his word, and he thought you were ungrateful, and he put you on the map and you should have been grateful. Is that pretty much how it was?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, Ronnie did make us a promise when it started that, you know, and we did work for next to nothing. I mean, you know, we didn't get any of the record sales or any of the merch or the ticket sales or anything. And, you know, the band was very successful. And so the deal was, Ronnie said, you know, I can't afford to pay you a lot. He says, I want to present it as a band. It's obviously the band's called Dio because of the name recognition. But, you know, we wrote as a band, we presented as a band. And there was a real chemistry there, a real magic, you know, that's pretty evident on those first records. But the promise was made to us that by the third album, it would be more of an equitable situation. And I was a squeaky wheel. I mean, the third album came and I was the one going, excuse me.
Yeah.
And at this time, to be honest, Ronnie was in a real dark spot. It was when he and Wendy had split, and he really wasn't in a happy place in his life. I mean, we had a lot of fun on the first two records, on Holy Diver and Last in Line. And by the time we were doing the Sacred Heart album, nobody wanted to be in the studio anymore. You know, Ronnie's mood was really dark. For the first two records, everyone was there. Like, you didn't just leave when you did your parts. We were all supportive of each other. There was a genuine collective excitement going on, and I think that comes across in the records. Sacred Heart was a very dark time for Ronnie, and it was a very dark record for us to make. It was really, really difficult. And at the same time, I was kind of pushing for this promise to be fulfilled, you know? I didn't want to just let it slide. So anyway, I did the first American leg of the tour. I came back over this side of the pond to visit my family because we were due to start here in the UK.
Yeah.
And that's when I got a FedEx that told me I was fired if I didn't sign a contract to work for nothing. So it happened, you know, it was kind of crappy the way it happened. It left a very bad taste in my mouth, and then Ronnie and I both made the mistake of bad mouthing each other in the press, you know, so which is never a good idea. But you know, a lot of time has passed. A lot of things have happened. Ronnie's gone. You know, I let all of that go, and as a result of that, I was able to come back to the music, and for the first time in 30-something years, I could listen to it and have a whole different appreciation of it and approach toward it, and really celebrate it. And you know, one thing that the biggest thing that I took from all of that was that it was as much Jimmy Bain's legacy, Vinny's, mine, as it was Ronnie's. You know, we created those records.
It was a band.
It was a band. It was very much a band. So I'm really, really happy to be out playing the music. I mean, it gives me great joy to be able to reclaim ownership of it, you know? So it's a joyous experience for me now.
On My Planet Rocks, live from Rockstock with Vivian Campbell. So after Dio, you've ventured into the world of David Coverdale. Hello, darlings.
Yes.
How are you? Me and my great friend Richie Blackmore taught me everything I know.
That's a very good impression.
It's not bad, is it?
Yeah, it's really good.
DC to my friends.
Yes.
So you joined Whitesnake at a bit of a weird time because you were in that era where the musicians on Whitesnake 87 were not the musicians on the I nearly went to David Coverdale again. Not the musicians on the albums, darling.
Not at all.
No.
Yeah, it was strange. It was right after I'd gotten fired from Dio. I was back in Ireland and just wondering what I was going to do. You know, and John Kolodner, who was a legendary A&R guy at Geffen Records at the time, he got in touch with me and said, I'm going to send you, back then cassette tapes, of course, I'm going to send you a tape of this new album from Whitesnake. And he said, I'm going to listen to it and I'm going to call you back. So he sent it to me, FedExed it. I put it on and I was amazed. It was incredible. I mean, John Sykes it was his masterpiece. You know, and John and I were both very influenced by Gary Moore.
Yeah.
So the guitar playing was right up my street. You know, I mean, I was very, very impressed by it, and the songwriting too, and Coverdale singing, everything about the record was just brilliant, I thought. And so the next day, John Kolodner called me up and said, David fired the entire band. And he says, I'm putting together a band to go on tour to promote this. Would you be interested? And I said, absolutely. So I flew back to LA and met with David and Tommy Aldridge, Adrian Vandenberg, Rudy Sarzo, and we spent a week making, I think we did 3 videos over a period of about 5 days. And then we went into a rehearsal room and then we played together for the first time. So it was a very backward sort of a way to put a band together. Now, I have nothing but the greatest of respect for all of those guys as musicians, but I don't feel that we collectively gelled as a band. To my ears, you know, when we were on tour, we didn't rehearse a lot. We'd gotten together as an image-driven band. You know, it was the time
MTV era.
For MTV era, yeah. And we, you know, the first Still of the Night video became like the hip clip of the week kind of thing. It was constantly being played. There was a big marketing push behind the band, and the record went to #1 in the States, and it was very, very successful. The tour was huge. But coming out of the original Dio band, which was incredibly tight and interly connected. You know, it was just such a great band with great chemistry. To be in this band where I felt that we weren't quite listening to each other, you know, with like 5 guys on stage playing their own shows, sort of thing, you know, and we all had big hair and ripped jeans. Oh God, I still got ripped jeans.
Yes, you have.
Just noticed that. I just don't have the hair, but you know, it really felt like that to me. It was like 5 guys looking at the audience doing their own individual things, whereas with the Dio band, it was really about the music. We were really watching and listening to each other. But having said that, it was great fun. It was really successful, and you know, we had a really big tour. It lasted about 15 or 16 months. We went around the world and did America twice. And then, you know, the wheels started to come off when we went in to write for the next record. It became very obvious that it was a closed shop. You know, that we weren't going to write as a band. So I knew that I wasn't going to have a future in it. You know, I didn't want to just be in a band where I'm just playing guitar. I wanted to be part of the band. And
how was not so much the Whitesnake experience, how was the David Coverdale experience?
Interesting.
What a surprise, darling.
No, I like David. You know, he and I get on very well. I always wanted to sing a bit. You know, I never wanted to really be a singer, but I wanted to develop my voice. And I remember when I was in Dio, I asked Ronnie, can I sing some background vocals? And he got very upset about that. He stuck his finger in my face and waved his finger. He said, no. He says, Richie Blackmore never sang. Tony Iommi never sang. He says, guitar players don't sing, they play guitar. And I'm thinking,
wow.
Well, Rory Gallagher, you know, Mark Bowen, you know, I'm thinking of all these guitar players that influenced me, who were singers as well. Hendrix, exactly, yeah. I mean, and maybe not great singers, but they had personality and character. And so anyway, by contrast, David was really supportive. Like, we used to sing in the showers afterwards. He was really into soul music.
What,
and
together?
With separate showers, but you know, because all these locker rooms are you playing in these arenas in America, and so we literally, I mean, we couldn't see each other. He's like in another shower down there, but we'd be singing harmony to like Sam Cooke songs and stuff like that. Because I was really into soul music, I still am, and those sort of singers were the singers that really kind of influenced me. And David, I think, is more of a blues soul singer than a metal rock singer. You know, he's got a real rich timbre to his voice, and anyway, so he was very supportive in that way, and I got along fine with him, but it did get a little weird towards the end.